Hi, everyone. Religious fanboy here again, and it's issue number one, Mom. Yay! Um, and for our first review of this month, we are reviewing Doomsday Clock, issue number one. For fun. Um, I really enjoyed this issue. It was very interesting to read. Um, mm, this is this issue kind of feels a lot like a direct sequel to The Watchmen. I don't necessarily I don't fully would say I recommend the Watchmen story. Like the lesson is good. It talks about like kind of like heroes and like touches the heavy subject of like justified sin and is that and talking about how like even though justified sin is still like even though a sin might be justified or might have reasons for it, that does not make it natural all of a sudden okay and not a sin anymore. It's still a sin, regardless. And like you see negative effects of decisions made by characters in the Watchmen directly in here. Um I really enjoy I really the art inside the book is a lot more contemporary to art that you'd more the style you'd usually see nowadays in comic books. I get it resembles a lot of the Earth One graphic novels. If you've read those, um, but the the issue cover, um, it more resembles Dave Gibbons' artwork. He did the artwork for the Watchmen, which it kind of reminds me a lot of Batman the Animated Series and how I get like the primary colors, like the main color you see is black. Like even though there's color, even though it doesn't, the design doesn't look necessarily fragmented. And there's like enough black that it has this nice and fascinating distortion effect on the image, which I personally very much enjoyed, and I liked its lesson about how it kind of shows the importance of transparency and honesty about situations and doing because like basically the citizens of that world were lied to in the Watchmen and then like they found the truth out another way through Rorschach's journals. And due to them finding out the truth, their world throughout went into turmoil out of people's anger because the thing the bad guy did and tried to cover up in the Watchmen was a large amount of the world was destroyed, and he thought he was justified in it making the world peaceful. And obviously, in Doomsday Clock, that's not what happened. Um, but yeah, main thing I liked about it was the lesson in it. It's a cool lesson and important. Um, And um and it's kind Doomsday Clock issue number one, like main thing that it does narratively is show kind of the negative outcomes of what happened before. So it kind of like talks about like the importance of how it would have been better if the sin didn't happen. The bad things that happened in Watchmen, it would have been better if that didn't happen. But also, it kind of shows how it would have been better if he was at least honest to the people about the situation, like more people about the situation instead of trying to cover it up, which that's kind of because when secrets are kept and you try to cover them up instead of deal with them, then the issues are only going to get bigger as you ignore them. Because there was a quote that I don't know, there's probably other people who've said stuff like this, but I wrote it down. I didn't know of people writing something very similar to this or not, but I said the most dangerous threats in our walk are those in which we originally tried to ignore them. Because when we ignored them, they were growing stronger to the point where we could no longer hide them, and that was when they became destructive. Which also reminds me a lot of Bible verses talking about like God's reasoning, like guard your heart and your soul and stuff. Kind of where like he talks guarding your heart, mind, and soul. It's like our sin, if we don't deal with it in a healthy way, it or where it becomes like a habit for us, it can become destructive and have negative effects on us. Like I've had issues with past, even memories of past sins that have screwed me up to where it's like basically a zombie for like mentally a zombie for the day. Um, like I'm just in a slump for that day. Um, I thought it was very interesting the realistic toll and kind of like Doomsday Clock. Kind of its overall message is that like negative decisions that are made by individuals affect a lot more than just us. Like it negatively affects us, but also it negatively affects everyone that your decision or your influence affects or impacts. Um, and with that being said, I wanted to read Proverbs chapter 13, and then I think I will end the video there after discussing that. A wise son heeds his father's instructions, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. A man shall eat well by the fruit of his mouth, but the soul of the unfaithful feeds on violence. He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. A righteous man hates lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and comes to shame. Righteous guards him whose way is blameless, but wicked overthrows the sinner. But wickedness overthrows the sinner, which is like what I talked about, where the sin, like even though in the sin we might feel okay about it, but really it's it's destroying us. It's kind of like the and also I'm gonna put a link to it, like the Bible verse reference. But there's a verse that really stuck out to me. Um, that says, "A lying, an honest enemy is better than a lying friend." Which also this could be used to, that verse could be used to apply to the wolf in sheep's clothing. Um, per, idea. Um, I'm gonna get back. There is the one who makes himself rich, yet has nothing, and one who makes himself poor, yet has great riches. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By pride comes nothing but strife, but the will of the advised comes wisdom. Um, and I'm gonna read up to 13, and then I will stop and talk about it. Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. He who despises the word will be destroyed, but he who fears the commandment will be rewarded. Um, this talks about like the importance of being willing to hold accountable and swallowing your pride and casting away arrogance. Because if you're all caught up and overcame by your own pride and arrogance, you will be distracted by from your necessity to repent. And with that being said, may God be with you and see you next time. Bye.